Welcome back for 6-4 notes today for geometry here at Hayes High School. So if you get out your quadrilateral hierarchy, we have finished quadrilateral, kite, trapezoid, isosceles trapezoid, and parallelogram. In last class, we learned rhombus, rectangle, and square. So we're going to go ahead and fill those three out to finish out our quadrilateral hierarchy. Little asterisk here. If you remember, a rhombus's definition was a 4 congruent sided polygon, which just means that all the sides were equal, right? Which is great. Since it's connected to a kite and a parallelogram, we're going to take all those properties with it. So opposite sides are parallel. That comes from a parallelogram, right? Opposite angles are congruent. That's also from a parallelogram. Diagonals meet at 90 degrees. That's from a kite. And last, well, there's two more things here. I know that the consecutive angles add up to 180 degrees. That's from a parallelogram. And then the diagonals bisect each other. That's from a parallelogram. So this would be congruent to this, and this would be congruent to this. That's everything for a rhombus. If I ever go too fast for you, feel free to pause the video and do it and then finish what you have missed. Let's head over to rectangle. Rectangle is connected to parallelogram and isosceles trapezoid. So we will be stealing things from those two shapes. So this is a, it has 4 right angles. It's a polygon with 4 right angles. Okay, things from a parallelogram, opposite sides are congruent, or parallel, and opposite sides are congruent. Since a rectangle is faced straight up, the diagonals, you're going to see, they actually get cut in half perfectly. So these are all congruent. And that's because the shape is not slanted like parallelogram or rhombus, or if it's perfectly cut in half. Okay? And then on this one, the last thing we have is that there are 4 isosceles triangles in here, and the top and the bottom are congruent triangles. The left and the right are congruent triangles. So that means that these 2 angles and the top 2 angles are the same, and then the bottom, the other sides are all equal, the left and right. Okay, that's everything on a rectangle. And let's finish up with the square here. So a square came from a rhombus and a rectangle. So it's a 4, we'll say 4 congruent sides. It has 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles. So it's a rhombus and a rectangle together. Okay, based off of that, we're going to steal some information. So opposite sides are parallel. They get arrows. Diagonals from a rhombus, they meet at 90. So if we draw our diagonals in there, let's fix that real quick. There we go. They meet at 90 degrees. And then from a rectangle, the diagonals bisect each other, which is great. And the last thing, this is the only shape that actually gets real numbers besides quadrilateral. Since these angles are perfectly cut in half, 90 divided by 2 is 45. So all angles of a square that are cut by a diagonal are 45 degrees. Okay, guys, and this right here, this is going to be your test 1. These are all the things that you have to have memorized for test day, and we will have a day where we really just review it in class, but if you miss that day, make sure that you're practicing these or this entire hierarchy by yourself so you have a good idea of what you're doing for test day. 6-4, we're heading to our notes. 6-4, solving special quadrilaterals notes. So this is, we're putting everything together from kite, trapezoid, isosceles trapezoid, all the way down to rhombus, rectangle, square, and even a parallelogram. So we're doing all of them today. The learning intention, I will learn how to solve for special quadrilaterals using their properties. Okay, classifying the quadrilaterals, we're just going to write down each definition so that way we can practice it one more time. A quadrilateral is a 4-sided polygon. Awesome. A trapezoid. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral with at least one pair of parallel sides. And you can say that in your own words too, if you would like to. Okay. An isosceles trapezoid is a trapezoid with at least, since it's a trapezoid, it has that quality, at least one pair of parallel sides and congruent legs. Or base angles. Some teachers say base angles and some teachers say congruent legs. It's the same thing because base angles make the legs congruent and vice versa. A kite is a quadrilateral with 2 adjacent congruent sides. Awesome. Okay. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral with 2 pairs of parallel sides. A rhombus is a parallelogram because it comes from a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. You could also say a quadrilateral. It's a quadrilateral with 4 congruent sides. A rectangle is a parallelogram because it's also attached to a parallelogram on the hierarchy with 4 right angles. And a square is a rhombus and a rectangle, so since they're attached to a parallelogram, we're just going to say, again, a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 right angles because it has both traits. These are definitions you need to know for test day, but I did want to just review them. We've been going over them for a few weeks here. So using the definitions, see if you can figure out which one is which. So given the quadrilaterals below, classify each and explain your reasoning. If you look at number 1, it has opposite sides are parallel, and it has this 90-degree angle box here. Well, if these are parallel, I know that these two are going to, or if the opposite sides are parallel and this is 90, I know that this is also going to be 90 because I always know these two sides equal 180 degrees. So 180 minus 90 is 90. And if that's true, then I know that this is also 90, which means that the bottom left corner is also 90. So this is a rectangle because it has 4 right angles. Perfect. Okay, let's head over to 2. 2 shows me that all sides are equal, so the only 2 shapes that all sides are equal are a rhombus and a square. And what you're going to notice is that the opposite angles are congruent. So if opposite angles are congruent, is that a square or a rhombus? That's a rhombus. And then you just write down the definition. There's 4 congruent sides, but the angles are different. So that's why it's not a square. Okay, if the angles were the same, that would make it a square. Here we are again. We got one 90-degree angle. And since in the directions it says given the quadrilaterals, well, in this example, I don't have anything parallel. So that doesn't really prove to me that these sides are 90. So this is actually just a quadrilateral. There's not enough information to prove anything about it. It has 4 sides. The only time I can prove that they're 90 is if I know that the opposite sides are parallel, because then they meet at 90 degrees. Okay, 4. Let's look. I got these 2 sides are equal. I have these 2 sides are equal. There we go. We have 2 sets of adjacent sides congruent. So that's a kite. Okay. And it's a kite because we have 2 congruent sets of adjacent sides. You're just kind of writing down what you see. It's sort of nice. Like, why is it a kite? Well, definition of a kite. All right, all I have on 5 are parallel. That's it. I don't have 90, I don't have anything. Opposite sides are equal, nothing. So if I have 2 sets of parallel sides, that's a parallelogram. Two sets of parallel sides. Great. Okay. 6. All I have is that these are parallel. It looks like an isosceles trapezoid, but it doesn't have anything like this. It doesn't have base angles are equal. So you can't say that if it's not there. We have to assume they aren't congruent. So if this is true, this is just a trapezoid. Okay. And the reason is because it only has 1 set of parallel sides. There's nothing else there that we can really say is congruent. Okay? Awesome. Look at this guy. I have right here my parallel sides. Now I have that the legs are congruent. So this is an isosceles trapezoid. I can be for sure. And the reason is because of the definition, right? We have 1 set of parallel sides, and then we have 1 set of congruent sides, and they're not the same, which is what makes it an isosceles trapezoid. Very good. 8. Okay. Notice off the bat, all sides are congruent. Great. then I know that the diagonals meet at 90. So if all sides are equal, that brings it down to a rhombus or a square, and then the diagonals meet at 90, that works for both a rhombus and a square. But for it to be a square, opposite angles, or all angles, have to be equal. And you're going to notice these angles are definitely not equal, right? So, or all equal. The top and the bottom are the same, and the left and the right are the same. But even though we can't really assume that, since I know all the sides are congruent, and that's all I really know, this is a rhombus. Because that's the definition, that it has 4 congruent sides. Okay. All right, and 9. 9 has absolutely no markings. So automatically, with absolutely no markings, that's a quadrilateral, right? The only thing that we know about this shape is that it has 4 sides. Like, that's it. It doesn't have anything special. That's all there is to it. Okay, let's head to the back. We are going to review how to solve each shape just because I feel like it's good to get one more day under our belt solving for each of these shapes. Number 10, it says given a rhombus EFGH, what is the value of y? Okay, first thing is first, if we know it is a rhombus, I'm going to start labeling it like it's a rhombus, okay? So all sides are equal. I know that diagonals bisect each other, which is great. I know the diagonals meet at 90. I know that these interior angles are congruent on both sides, which means these 2 interior angles are the same. Awesome. Okay. It must not have copied down, guys, but there should be a y right here. Just a little y. Now I can start using all those tick marks. Remember, if it has the same arc mark or the same tick mark, it's the same thing. So I have 55 here, which means 55 is here, which means 55 is here, and then I have 55 here, which is easy peasy, right? Now, y is inside this triangle. I'm going to highlight it real quick. Triangles are always 180 degrees, so I can take the 2 angles I have, 180 minus 55 minus, oh, I got a 90-degree angle right there, so minus 90, so 35 is what I have left over. So y 35 degrees. And that's all there is to it. But the best thing is once it gives you what it is, so this one was a rhombus, you want to start filling in everything you know about that shape, and then you can start seeing the things that are congruent. Okay, given the parallelogram ABCE, find the missing variables. Okay, so I have missing x and a missing y on this guy, right? Let's start putting everything we know about a parallelogram. Opposite sides are parallel. Opposite sides are congruent. Alternate interior angles are the same. So y is the same as this angle. This angle is the same as x. This angle is the same as 36. And this angle is the same as 61. Okay, that really does help me out, for being honest. So 36 is alternate interior with this angle up here. I know that's congruent. That helps me out. And then I have 61, can also go here. I know 105 and O are vertical angles, so I can put 105 in this little corner right here. And then I also know that 105 and this angle together are a linear pair. So a linear pair is 180. So if I take 180 minus 105, I am going to get 75 degrees. So this guy is 75 degrees. Now I can start looking at my triangles that the variables are inside. So I have this one, x is inside of this one. Triangles are always 180 degrees. So we'll subtract the two angles I have, which is 61 and 75, and I'm going to get 44 degrees. So x is 44 degrees. Okay? Now y is inside a different triangle. Okay? Remember, triangles are always 180 degrees. So we're going to subtract 36 and 105, and we end up with 39 degrees. So our y value here is 39. So we're going to finish with x is 44 degrees and y is 39 degrees. Perfect. So plug everything you know in and then start solving using your triangle theorems, triangle angle sum theorem. Classify the shape. Ooh, so now it does not tell me what it is, but it wants me to say what it is and then solve for x and y. So I got to think from the front. All this guy gives me is that I have parallel sides. That's it. The only shape I know that has that requirement and nothing else is a parallelogram. Okay, so it is classified as a parallelogram. So then I look at my picture and I'm like, well, what did it give me? It gave me sides. It didn't give me angles. So what do I know about the sides of a parallelogram? Well, opposite sides are equal. So 5y plus 2 is equal to 8y minus 13. And 6x minus 3 is equal to 5x plus 4. So I can set those up, right? Because they are equal if they have the same tick mark. So 8y minus 13 is equal to 5y plus 2 because they both only have one tick mark. So I'll subtract my 5y and I get 3y minus 13 is equal to 2. Add my 13 over. I get 3y is equal to 15, and then divide by 3. Y is 5. Oh, it's not letting me write that, is it? There we go. Great. I already have one done and out of the way, and all I need to do is solve for the x values. If you notice, the x's are on the left and right, and they both have the same tick mark again. So if that's true, I can set them equal. 6x minus 3 is equal to 5x plus 4. And we can subtract the 5x and get x minus 3 is equal to 4, and then add 3. So x is 7. Awesome. We are doing great. Keep up the great work. Okay, moving on. Given that GIGH or GHIJ is a rectangle, so it tells me it's a rectangle. H to K is V plus 12. Okay, and then I to K is 3V. It's a rectangle, so, and we're talking about diagonals. What do we know about the diagonals of a rectangle? That they all bisect each other. So all these lengths have the same tick mark, which means that V plus 12 is equal to 3V. We would minus V over. We get 12 is equal to 2V. Divide by 2. V is 6. That's all there is to that one. Sometimes kids really struggle with setting that one up and equal to. Just remember, has the same tick mark, so they do equal each other. Okay. Solve for the missing variables in the square. Squares are awesome. All I have here are my y value and my x value. So remember, square comes from a rhombus and a rectangle. But the cool thing is that all diagonals meet at 90, so I know off the bat that y is 90. And another thing that I need memorized is that the angles, these 90-degree angles, actually get split in half. So x is 45. Square's kind of a memorization game, for being honest. All right, solve for the missing variables in the parallelogram. Okay, well, I know with parallelogram that opposite sides are congruent, and I also know that the consecutive sides are 180 degrees. Okay, so that off the bat tells me that y is how big? Should be 133. So then how am I going to find x? Well, 133 and x together make 180. So if I take x plus 133 equals 180, I can just subtract 133 and find that x is 47. Pretty cool. That's all there is to it. Parallelograms I find to be one of our simpler shapes, which is good. Okay, and last we just have a few review questions over kite and isosceles trapezoid since we didn't have any yet. Classify the shape and then solve the missing variables. Well, what you notice is that these guys, you have two sets of congruent sides. That's a kite. Okay. So all I have here is this angle and this angle. But if I look, they're inside one triangle, which is nice, because something I know about the diagonals of a rhomb or of a kite is that they meet at 90. So I know 90 is in the center, okay? And I know that all of that equals 180 degrees. So 3x plus 2x is 5x plus 10 plus 90 is 100, and that's equal to 180. And then we'll subtract 100, and we divide by 5, and we get x is 16. Okay? That's how you do that one, and that's all there is to it. Let's slide over to isosceles here. It says classify the shape, then solve the missing variables. Ooh, I kind of gave it away, but let's go over why it's an isosceles trapezoid, because I know that I have one set of parallel sides, and then I have one set of congruent sides. So that's why it's an isosceles trapezoid. Awesome. Okay, and an isosceles trapezoid, I know base angles are congruent. So 79 is congruent to 2. So 2 is 79. And I know that consecutive angles equal 180 degrees. So to find 1, I'm going to take 180 degrees minus 79, and I find that that's 101. So 1 is 101 degrees. Okay, we're really close. We're to our last two. It says classify the shapes and solve the missing variables. So again, look at this guy. I have two congruent, or a set of congruent sides there. Then I have a set of congruent sides here. A is super easy to find. Can anybody know where A is? A is 50. X is almost pretty darn easy to find just like A, because non-vertex angles in a kite are congruent. So X are 110 and X are the same. So X is 110 degrees. And then from kite, you guys have to remember that every four-sided shape is 360 degrees. So to find Y, I need to take 360 minus 110 minus 110 minus 18, and that's going to tell me what Y is. Y was 122 degrees. Perfect. And this is a kite. We didn't classify. I didn't write that down. I think I said it, but I didn't write that down. Okay. Classify the shapes and solve the missing variables. This is our last one. Woo, we made it. So we have one set of parallel sides, and we have one other set of congruent sides. That is an isosceles trapezoid. Great. Now, with an isosceles trapezoid, we have to remember that base angles are the same, and consecutive angles between bases are 180. So 67 is the same as 1, which is great. And then 2 and 67 together make 180 degrees. So to find 2, I would take 180 degrees minus 67, and I would find that it's 113 degrees right there. Okay. Great job today, guys. I know this was a long one, but you guys are rock stars and keep up the great work. I look forward to seeing you in class. See ya.